Alright, so this is going to be my first video on this dog kennel that I'm making. So you can see I have a drawing in Microsoft Paint. It was just handy at the time, and I have dimensions on here so you can pause the video if you really want to make this and write them down. So this is going to be the front side of the kennel. This is going to be the side view of the kennel. Just go over what parts it's going to have. This thick black line is going to be the top side of the kennel. I'll show you how to make that. I have an outer frame. It's going to hold the doors up. I have the doors themselves. These black lines are bars. The gray area is nothing. I just use that to distinguish what I'm looking at. So we got the frame, the doors, the bars, and the top. There's going to be a bottom side, but I'm not thinking I'm going to show it because I think it's going to look ugly, so I'm probably going to put it on the, cut it so that it'll fit just inside the box that I'm going to basically make for the kennel, so I can hide it. You'll just have some screws right here, and I might put plugs or something. So this is the side view. One key thing to note is anytime I have a wide board on my drawing, that means the wider side of the board's going to be facing forward, and if I have a narrow side, narrow rectangle, that means the side part of the board's going to be facing forward from the view you're looking at, and this is the side. That's kind of explanatory. Here's the top. Like I said, the bottom's probably going to be inside of the basically box I'm making for the kennel. And there's bars. Now these bars are not true to what's actually going to be there. I just kind of drew them in just for a representation. I gotta still do the math and figure out what bars I'm using, how many are going to be in the space. So just look at the dimensions. They're pretty self-explanatory. One thing to note, I haven't checked to see if I wrote it everywhere, but 2.25 inches is going to be the width of each board on this kennel. Now the top side's going to be different. I'll show you in a second, but yeah, that is going to be my numbers. So I like making a cut plan because I'm very forgetful and I don't like screwing up. One times means you cut this space one time. So you need the top board to be 44.75 by 30.6. Now that's not a piece of plywood. The top, the person I'm making it for, wants it to look like this. She didn't want that, she wants this. So I estimated I'll need about 10 of those, but I'll get into that. The back plate is actually just going to be a piece of plywood cut to about that. I'd cut the back and the bottom plate last. That's probably what I'm going to do so you don't screw up. This is the front frame. I put an X every time I cut one of the boards. You can see the dimensions. You need 2 cuts of these because there's 2 doors, so put 2 X's every time you cut a board. The sides, there should be 4 X's because I made 4 of these. I'll update that later. That's going to be the plan for the top, and that's going to be the bottom plate, big piece of plywood. So kind of made this video late. I've already cut a lot of the pieces. I'll show you what the top plate looks like. Looks like that. I just cut a bunch of boards to the length and glued them together, and then did some measurements for the width. Cut off what I needed. As you can see, this last board is very short. I just made it just so it reached dimensions on my little sheet. So you're going to make the board pretty much like that. And that's the design we're going with. The back and the bottom is just going to be a giant sheet of plywood that I'm just going to cut as I need to. I'm thinking I'm going to use the narrow one for the back plate, and I'm probably going to use this thicker piece of plywood for the bottom, just so I can screw into it since I'm going to try and hide it. So yeah, go ahead and make those cuts and just do the math and figure out how many of these suckers you need from Lowe's. This is just pine. It's cheap. Alright. Just some tips in case you're new to woodworking, stuff I've learned from people. So you go to make one of your cuts, and it's the 9.125 inch cut. The first cut you make, you want to make your guide board. And you're going to take this board, and for every other cut you're going to make, instead of measuring with your tape measure, 9.125 inches, you're just going to take this and put it on a big piece of board and take your pencil and mark the end, so that every cut will be based off of this board rather than making a ton of measurements and increasing your error going left to right. So using that method, I'd say these are all pretty flush. Next thing you want to do is make sure you have flat sides. Some of the boards at Lowe's have all these curved sides. They're not, I don't know how easy it is to see with the camera, but you don't really want that. Make sure you rip both sides before you get to 2.25 inches, which is on the data sheet. So this is, I ripped it at 3 inches, I'll rip the other side. And just the tip for the top side board, how to put it together. If you've never failed miserably, which I have many a time at doing stuff like this, first and foremost, let's say you got your boards. You want to make sure each side is perfectly flat. That means you can put it on a flat surface, and if you can look under, you can't see any light in between it. That'd be like if you could see like this, if you could see between it, but this board's pretty flat. Anyway, get both sides perfectly flat. When you clamp it together, you should be able to see no light between it. I'm going to try and do this with one hand, but probably going to fail. And you just kind of look up, and you see how you can see some light between these boards right here? That means they are not perfectly flat. That ain't good. It's not going to be a very good, I don't know what to call that, joint. Anyway, you're going to have your boards. You're going to put some glue right here, clamp your boards like this, put a big old clamp on top of it. When you're clamping a ton of boards like that, you're going to want to put a bunch of weights on the top side. The bottom side might look bad, but I can fix that with sandpaper, or have a belt sander, and some of the sides won't match up on one side. It's normal to make some errors, so I'm just going to fix that with a belt sander. Just make sure one side is perfectly straight and you can fix the other side, and the top side will look good. Be mindful of what you glue on top of. I glued on top of the ground, and as you can see, I got some junk on it, but like I said, I have a belt sander, so I could take that stuff off easy. You might not be able to, but just keep that in mind when you're making the top if you don't know what you're doing. And just for extended clarification, because I know it's hard to just go by what people say sometimes, you're going to get all your boards together, and you're going to put a bunch of clamps, big old clamps. I have a ton of these. And you're going to clamp your board, whatever. You want to make one side straight, and the other side you could just fix later. That's why sometimes it's good to just, if this calls, I don't know what it calls, I could look, but if this calls for 30 inches wide, long, just cut some boards to about 30.5, because you might still have error in your cuts, and just make this side straight, and you can always take off from that side with a sander or jigsaw or something. Anyway, put all your boards side by side, make sure each side is flat so that you get a nice clean connection. You don't want to be able to see light through them when you press the boards together and look down. Glue both sides of the board, and you're going to put your clamps. You're going to put a bunch of these, probably here, here, here. I put like 5 clamps along the sides of the board when I did mine. Now I said put weights down. When you clamp a bunch of boards, they have a tendency to bow up, and they will pop, and your clamp will go flying because they'll just bow and bow and bow, and then they'll just break. Anyway, you want to put a bunch of weights. Obviously not this, because this isn't doing much. I mean, you can use it if you want, but put a ton of weights, especially on the corners and just all around. I put probably 45, 45, 45, 45, 45, 45, and then just layered 25s and 10s in between. If you have plates, boxes, anything, just weight down this side of the board. You want this side of the board flat. The underside might look ugly, but it just depends. You can always fix it up, but you definitely want one side of this good, and you want the top side as flat as possible. And the bottom side should be good, but some boards are thicker than others, and it creates problems. Just for clarification. Alright, so I skipped some steps, but this is how your frame's going to look when you start building it. So these are the 2 side pieces, front of the frame, side of the frame, and you're just going to start assembling it. I'll show you how I made it up. It doesn't really matter how you make it, you just want it to look like this. You're going to build your frame, and then these are the side pieces. You're just going to connect it to the frame. I use pocket hole jigs. I used a pocket hole jig to make pocket holes. So the screws going in through here to there. Similarly, if you look at this pocket hole, screws going down. And I made sure that my pocket holes were on this side so that I had room to make these pocket holes. and all I did was I drilled into the front of the frame. If you want, Craig makes a pocket jig. It's pretty good. We're using 3/4 inch board, and on here, if you can see, you set your marker to 3/4 on both sides. What you do, say you got this board, you'd grab this board, the one that the pocket hole's in, and you take your jig and you put it down on top. Now this board's too short, so that might not make any sense right now, but take your pocket hole jig and you set it down on top. You're going to get yourself a clamp, and right where this is, you're going to clamp it down to the board. Ooh. Then comes with a big old drill, and if you look at the end of the bit, it's small and the rest is big. You want to drill until this little piece just comes outside, so that right here your screw head will go down to the thick part but won't go through the small part. So I just put a piece of tape on it. I drilled the sample board, and right when this tip came out, I put a piece of tape right at the end of here. So that's how I did it. I did it with pocket hole jigs. See, it literally just goes straight in here and whatever. Okay, and now we have the backboard added on. So what I did is cut a piece of plywood. Let's see, I think I did to the width of this front board on the front side, and then I popped 2 screws in right here, and I popped 2 screws in down there. And what I did was I put this board flat on the ground and took these legs and put a level on the side. Now this is on the ground, put a level on the side to make sure these were straight, screwed those in and cut off the excess. So now we have a backboard. And similarly, don't go off the measurements I had for the bottom, because once you make it, it might be slightly off. Put a tape measure inside the bottom, put a tape measure inside the bottom that way, and cut it to fit. Also, if it's a tight fit and this plywood has a little bend to it, to get it to sit my plywood in the bottom, I just pulled on the sides and it plopped right in. So another thing you want to do before you attach the bottom is figure out how far apart you want your bars and what bars you're using. I'm using 3/8 inch bars, and the person I'm building it for wants them 3 inches apart. So I'm going to have to do some calculations. So I have decided that I'm going to do 4 bars, and they're going to be 2.625 inches apart. How do you do this? Alright, well, you got the door, and you know the width is 19.125 inches, and if you look at the diagram, 2.25 is the width of each edge of a board. So you're going to get on your calculator, 19.125, you're going to subtract 4.5, because 2.5 and 2.5, following my plan. Now, the bars are 3/8. If I have 4 bars, that's 12/8, which is 1.5. So subtract the width of the combined total of the bars. Alright, 13.125. Now if you look, if you have 4 bars, you have 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you want to know the width of each space, divide by 5, 2.625. And that's what I'm going with. Now, if you don't want your kennel to look silly, when you put the doors in, 2.625 between each bar here, but also I'm most likely going to try my best to do 2.625 between each bar here and on that side as well. So I'm going to go ahead and attach the bottom of the kennel. You can see I put 5 pocket holes in the back, 3 on each side, and I left this side bare. That's because I don't think a pocket hole is going to go well with this thin sheet of plywood. So when I attach the bottom board, I'm going to put screws along the back side. Probably going to put 5. Also went ahead and made the door frames. One of them is a little too big, but you can just sand it, it's no big deal. I did like I did the the frame of the kennel, you know, just pocket holes. Oop, almost fell out. So, yep, that's where I'm at. So, I skipped a ton of steps in the video making. Sorry, I was rushing to get this thing done. But the last video, I didn't have the bottom end. That was pretty easy. You just measure the insides and make sure to cut it as close to that measurement as you got, and you just sand it until you can push this entire kennel on top of the bottom plate. Note that the bottom plate's going to sit inside, so see how I can't see the bottom because it's inside. Same thing, pocket hole jig. I put 3 pocket holes right here. I did not use pocket holes for this thin material on the back. I just went ahead, and you can see the screws on the bottom. I think I put 1, 2, 3, I put 5, and just space them out however. On the front, I think I did 5 pocket holes as well. And just set this on top, make sure the bottom is flush with the bottom of the sides. Now, I put in bars, so I got round steel rod from Home Depot, and I believe I cut this so that it would sit in here about 1 inch, and up here it goes the full way almost. It hits like right here. Then I got wooden plug cutters, and I cut myself some plugs, and I'm going to sand these flush to the top. I don't have my plug cutters out, but I'll go ahead and show you the blade I use for the steel rod. So what you want to do is, if you want to cut them yourself, go ahead and get you one of these from the hardware store. Don't push too hard. I mean, you got to push kind of hard, but if you push way too hard, these, I heard, will fracture. It cut in about 5 seconds. Sent a bunch of sparks everywhere when I cut the rods to length. I got 4 pairs of 48-inch steel rods for the front. So these are both 22 inches, and I drilled the inch down on the holes. As you can see, I got a lot of space to fill with plug cutters. I just got whatever for the hinges, and I just kind of made a whatever measurement. I wasn't too specific. I don't know a measurement for that, but I just picked whatever looked good. The distance from here to here is the same distance as from here to there. On the front of the kennel, yeah, sorry for moving so fast. I put a lock on it like this. So this lock is on there. It won't really hold the dog in that well if you just have a lock like this. I'll go ahead and show you. I tried to put this block right here with one of those cabinet hinges. So if you can see, there's a little metal piece that pushes into 2 rolling balls. Yeah, there we go. That's a good angle. So I tried one of those. The problem is if the dog pushes too hard, this just opens. So probably going to take another one of these and put it on the back side. I'll make one of the doors stable, probably the right side, and then this door will open freely. And this door can be opened if you undo a latch. To attach the top of the kennel, I put pocket holes. So there's one right here, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 pocket holes. Make sure they're in between the bars. And pocket holes on here, 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't really have any dimensions. I mean, I can give you dimensions, but, you know, I just picked whatever and just went by that. Yeah, sorry again I skipped so many steps, but hopefully you can figure it out. So from the front side, I believe you can just look. That's about where I put the hole, about at 3, and pretty much centered at 3.5. This one's centered at 6.5, 9.5, 12.5, 15.5, 18.5, 21.5, 24.5. And that's the same on that side. If you want a measurement on the pocket holes, I am not even sure what I did. I think this one might sit at, let's see. Now I'm measuring from the front. Kind of hard to do it one hand. This one sits at about 5 inches, 11 inches, 17, and 23. And that's for both sides, that side and that side. I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the back. Note that this is 1/2 inch plywood, so I had to adjust the pocket hole jig to 1/2 inch. And these are about, let's see, 7 3/4, 14 3/4, 21 3/4, 28 3/4, and 35 3/4 where I put my pocket holes in the back. That'll be the same for the front. Now I'll give you a measurement if you want it for how I spread these rods. Let's see. Like I said, I'm sorry I went fast. I hope you can figure it out by these short videos. But measuring from that side of the door, this one's centered at 5, 8, 11, 14, and that's for both doors. I made them symmetric. All right, and I'm gonna go back in my videos and make sure I didn't skip anything. So I went back on my videos and I saw that I did not show how I did the door. You want to have it to the measurement inside of the kennel, whatever measurement I had on the sheet. What I ended up doing is you make it a perfect cut, the door won't work properly. If you see, the doors work fine right now. The hinges need to have some oil on them. But if you see, there's a little gap along the sides. What you can do, and I actually have some left over, go ahead and get them. Let's get index cards. And they fell, whatever. So I got someone to help me. Like I said, I was rushing through the kennel, so I didn't really have time to make a video on it. We took 3 index cards, and oh yeah, it's a tight fit. Well, it has to be, because that's how we mounted it. You want to sand each side so that 3 index cards can fit under here, and that 3 index cards can fit on top. 3 index cards here, here, and we might have done here. Then you're going to install your hinge. And I just have it labeled because I'm about to paint it. But you see how this middle of the hinge is lined up in between the boards? That's how you want someone to hold it for you. And then you're going to drill your 3 holes into the hinge, or whatever hinge you pick. It doesn't really matter. That's just what I got. Just to show you, this hinge is about 4.5 down from the top. And it's probably 4.5 up from the bottom. Yeah, well, let's see. From right here, that is 5 inches. So I might have lied. What's that? Oh, that's 5 inches as well. Oops. So both of those are 5 inches down. If you want to know where this middle piece was mounted, the bottom of the middle piece is at about 12 3/4. And it should be 12 3/4 from the top to here. Yeah, it's about 12 3/4 both sides, just to make it symmetrical. So, hope that helps. Oh, and a good tip while you're making this. Hope you can figure this out as well. You don't want to drill, so I got 3/8 inch rods, and you want to make holes for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, I counted that right. 8. You don't want to drill 3/8 inch holes on the top. I made that mistake. Not good. So with the rods, I spray painted them before I installed them, and you have to hammer them down to get them through a 3/8 inch hole. Well, if you don't drill your hole perfectly, the rod will sit like this, or like that. How did I get them sitting straight? Well, I got a 1/2 inch paddle bit, so I drilled 1/2 inch holes on the top, and then I made perfect 3/8 inch holes on the bottom, so that you can sit this down and then hammer it into the straight hole, because you only want to drill down a full inch on the bottom. And what you'll do is, I don't have a bit out, but I can show you an example. Let's say you got one of these. Say this is your drill bit. Let's just fantasize real quick.
hold it and measure what would be about an inch down. Say it's that. Get a piece of tape and fold it around the bit right when it's flush to the top of this. So your tape would go around probably about right here, and then you would drill down into here until it touches the bottom of the tape.
And that's how you drill inch holes, and that's how you keep each one of them consistent. So I hope that helps you figure out how to do this part of the kennel. Also, for the top board we had earlier, I went ahead and did a dark walnut stain all around. After I did my stain, I went ahead and used fast drying polyurethane clear gloss. So that's what I'm doing on here. And I think I've said it before, but all this wood is about to be painted white. I just need to sand it. So, hope that helps. And I didn't think about this till now. If you've never cut plugs in your life, plug cutters look about like that. I need to pull that material out, but I use these. And you just get a bunch of scrap pieces of wood and cut your plugs with. And the plug will be stuck inside of there, which there's a small plug stuck in there from when something broke off from me drilling. But that's what I'm using. After you cut one of these plugs, say this was your hole over there at the kennel, you put glue in the hole until it touches the top of the rod, and then you'll hammer your plugs down in there. Hope that helps. Alright, the kennel's done. Put on the top, painted the sides. Good tip is when you want to paint, well, first of all, don't even put the rods in. Paint it first, because painting around the rods is a pain, and you got to tape them up, and it's just horrible. And make sure you take all your hinges and all your little fasteners off before you go ahead and paint it white. See, I still got tape on there, and there's just paint everywhere. I don't know if you can really tell, the lighting's pretty poor around here, but I just needed to make a video to finish this thing off. But yep, everything's painted white, top's installed, and that's about how it's gonna look.